Happy Friday folks, today I'm going to be showing you how to make great looking dungeon tiles for your role-playing games. I'm going to be starting a new Pathfinder RPG campaign in a few weeks, and even though my players will be playing virtually, I wanted to build up a few pieces of dungeon terrain to have on display. So I'm going to show you exactly how I do it. So let's head to the bench and get started. I began by cutting out my basic shapes. For this tutorial I'm going with two different 3x3 rooms, a 2x4 corridor and an L-shaped corridor. I'm using 10mm extruded polystyrene for the project because I won't be adding any backing material. If you want to make your pieces even more durable however, you can use something like a 3mm MDF, cut that to match your dungeon tiles and then make the tiles themselves from something like 6mm foam. Links to where I get all my foam will be in the description below. After cutting out the basic shapes, I then use a permanent marker to mark out my grid. I'm using a standard 1-inch square grid for this, and I use a permanent marker so that I don't leave any indentations in the foam that will get picked up during painting. It's at this stage I also mark out anywhere where I want cracks to be. With the grid all marked out, it's time to start engraving the stonework. I begin by running the tip of my X-Acto blade along the guidelines. I'm not cutting all the way through here, just scoring the top few millimeters of the foam. Once I've made my incisions, I go back over those lines with a pencil. This widens the gaps and creates separations between the flagstones. How deep and wide you make these grooves is down to personal preference, but I normally do a few passes with my pencil to create a strong contrast. Once the lines are scored, I come back with a sculpting tool and use that to slightly round over all the corners of the flagstones to give them that more natural feel. Once my basic flagstones are done, I come back and engrave the cracks, following the exact same process of using my X-Acto knife and the pencil. However, after scoring the cracks, I will come back and use the eraser side of the pencil to press the cracked parts of the tile down to create some varying height. Doing this can cause some of the engraved detail to disappear, so I go back in and rescore some of my lines if needed. To stop the tiles looking odd when placed next to each other, we need to make sure that the edges of the flagstones have that same soft bevel to them as the centre stones. To achieve this, I place two tiles next to one another and I run my pencil in the gap between them so that when the pieces are placed together, they look more natural. To add that great stone texture to the piece, I use a selection of stone, brick and concrete from the office car park and I press them into the surface of the foam. You can also use a scrunched up ball of aluminium foil for this, but you'll need to re-roll it quite regularly to stop the surface of the ball from flattening out. Once all my pieces are cut out, I cover them all in a coat of Mod Podge sealer mixed with some black paint. This seals the foam, making it more durable, and it also serves as the base coat layer for when we come to painting. Once the sealer is dry, I apply a variety of colours using a dry brushing technique. I add paint to my brush and then work it into the bristles by wiping away the excess paint. Then I use a light touch to apply the colour all over the raised surfaces of the piece. I use a variety of greys, working from dark to light all the way up to white until I'm happy with the contrast. Once the dry brushing is finished, I set the pieces aside to dry. Once all the paint is dry, I apply a wash to the entire piece. A wash is a very thin paint designed to run into all the cracks and crevices. To make my wash, I mixed some black paint with some water, added a small amount of brown and green paints to add some depth and warmth, and then finally I add a drop of dish soap to help break the surface tension while applying the wash so that it goes on much smoother. To apply the wash, I just brush it all over the tile, making sure to get it into all the little nooks and crannies. And here you can see the final pieces. They are really easy to make and look great on the tabletop. They're the perfect backdrop for your dungeon adventures. I like to leave my tiles separate for maximum flexibility so that I can build my dungeon in any way that I want, but there are lots of different ways that you can use to connect your tiles. One way to join your tiles together is to just use cocktail sticks in precisely marked points all along the sides of the tile, and then you can press them together. I prefer to run dungeons without any walls getting in the way so that I can see the miniatures easily, but we will be making some simple stone walls that you can line up alongside these tiles in a future video. Using foam to make your dungeon tiles is a great way to create a vast dungeon for very little money. For less than £10 you'll be able to create a sprawling dungeon that your players will spend hours navigating. I hope you found this video useful. Leave a like down below if you liked it, and if you're new to Icarus Miniatures, click right here to subscribe, and if you want to keep watching, click right here to see last week's video. And until next time, happy gaming!